Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 181. Patience is grossly underestimated. Gary V.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Video Blocks. Now, guys, when I was shooting my show for Legendary Pictures, and I did that 96 pages in 4 days, I actually got into post and we used a lot of stock footage, stock sounds, and even some graphics from Video Blocks. They are an amazing resource. With your membership, you are granted the rights to use that footage forever, in perpetuity, on any projects you want to. So if you want to try a 7-day free trial, and by the way, anything you download during those 7 days is yours to keep. And if you decide to stay, you get 84% off the yearly membership. It is well worth it, guys. Trust me, if you do a lot of production, it is something you really need. So just head over to videoblocks.com/hustle. That's videoblocks.com/hustle. Now, today's show, we're going to cover something that I've not really covered on the show before, and it's such a crucial part of the filmmaking process. It is how to edit a movie trailer. Movie trailers are the front line to your film, to your project, to your series. I cannot tell you how many horrible movie trailers I've seen for indie filmmakers. It blows my mind how you can spend $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, or even your last $20,000 on a feature film and not put so much care and energy in crafting the perfect trailer. What do you think the studios do when they spend $200 million plus another $200 million in marketing and advertising? They take forever to get that trailer just right. And that's what filmmakers need to do. But a lot of them just don't understand that it's a craft. It's a completely different craft than editing a narrative feature or comedies or shorts or anything like that. It's a whole other world. Now, I've edited probably 1,000, 500, 1,000 promos in my day, whether they be network promos, movie trailers, and so on. And I wanted to bring onto a show an expert on how to edit movie trailers. So I brought on Chris from FilmEditingPro. Now, Chris is a big-time movie trailer editor working on major studio releases, monster releases of, tentpole movies. So he's worked from everything from the indie movie all the way to monster $200 million movies. And we go through the entire world of not just how the studio world works when it comes to editing movie trailers, but how to actually break down a movie, how to create a great trailer, regardless of genre, whether it be a drama, a dramedy, an action, a comedy, a horror. They all have different techniques and craft to create the optimal movie trailer to help sell your movie. And at the end of the interview, I'll give you guys a link to his free online course on how to edit movie trailers. I've taken that course and it is really amazing. Coming from the perspective of a professional editor, what they've been able to put together and what Chris was able to put together is just gold. There is nothing else on the market right now to show you how to edit a movie trailer, and especially in many ways style of a big budget movie trailer, so you can make your indie movie look like a tentpole movie if that's what you want. So make sure to listen to all the way to the end, and I'll give you that special link. So please enjoy my conversation with Chris from FilmEditingPro. I'd like to welcome to the show Chris from FilmEditingPro. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good, man. Thanks for doing the show. It is a topic we're going to talk about movie editing, trailer editing, and it's something that is very dear to my heart because I've been editing trailers by necessity for the last about 12, 15 years as well. I'm not a quote-unquote trailer editor, not as nearly as good as you, sir, but I fake it fairly well, and it's such an important part of the filmmaking process that I'm so glad I had you on so we can kind of dissect what a good trailer is and all that kind of good stuff. But before we get into it, how did you get into the business in the first place?
Yeah. So you mentioned faking it. I think we're all kind of faking it to some extent. But I actually got my start as I was a visual artist back in college. I was interested in 3D animation at the time. That was around maybe 2000 to 2004.
Mhm.
So that was kind of like the early days of 3D. I went to school for that. I met an alum from my college that was actually, he was one of the VPs at Universal. So kind of good luck there.
That's pretty fortuitous.
Yeah, I was appreciative of that connection for sure. But even with that, it took me, I don't know, 16 to 20 emails of pestering him
Mhm.
until finally he agreed to have me out to Los Angeles to try out as an internship.
Wow.
Um,
Isn't that amazing that the film industry is one of those places like you beg and beg and beg to work for free?
to
It's
work for free.
yeah, it's like the only business that works in. Like,
I know. I've never heard the phrase "you should be grateful for this" so many times in my life.
oh my, no, it's especially when you walk into these higher level
Yeah.
situations. Yeah, I get it completely. I was lucky enough that I got my first internship like that from someone from that went to my school, but it wasn't nearly at Universal, for sure. So that's pretty insane.
Yeah, it was a little scary. At the time, I lived in Virginia, so it was a cross-country drive,
Mhm.
and it was pretty much, let's make this happen. And of course, it also really wasn't in my area of expertise. Like this was filmmaking and editing and post-production, and I didn't know too much about that at the time. I mostly, knew the creative arts.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I kind of got my start at the bottom there. I don't know. We probably all experienced some of this. You work in the tape room, you
Oh
peel
yeah.
VHSs, and
Oh yeah. Oh God,
all the
peeling
fun stuff.
VHSs. God, oh God. I did that in the yeah VHSs and also magnet. The magnet. Did you use the magnet?
Yeah, the magnet stripper.
Yeah, to
Strip
strip
the
away.
tape.
Yeah, to blank out the tape so they could be
Hmm.
reused again. Everybody listening, most people are like, "What is he speaking? What are they speaking of?"
And
Tapes.
the funny thing is, it wasn't that long ago. We're talking maybe 10 years.
You're right. You're talking about 10, 15 years ago at the most. Yeah, not 10 years ago. I was still doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, things moved quick once we got to digital.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's kind of my story. I started there at the bottom. A lot of late nights, a lot of weekends, kind of editing on the side. Because the cool thing about working, I mean, I know how lucky I was to be able to work at a place like that. And I mean, we had rough cuts of movies that were unreleased all across our network servers. So you had the trailer guys that were working on, actually cutting the stuff, and the assistants and the junior editors. We were mostly doing prep work for them. We were finding sound effects. We were maybe possibly cutting small sections of something for somebody to be able to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, we would actually get a chance to assemble features when we were super early in production, or when I should say the production was super early, and we were just getting sent dailies.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no rough cut for us to watch. So as assistants, we would assemble. I think I assembled Fast and Furious 4, or I think they called it Fast 4, whatever it was called.
Yeah. Fast Five.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So we got some experience kind of with long format there, but ultimately the focus of our department was in trailers and short form. And over enough editing 15s and 30s and stuff like that, gradually got moved up into an editor seat and started getting a crack at cutting real trailers.
That's awesome, man. I was stuck doing promos at a Christian network in West Palm Beach
Uh-huh.
for a year and a half, and I did promos for like Matlock. And
Awesome.
it could occasionally, we would get the movie of the week, which would be like some cool 80s movie, and I would have fun with that. But generally
Yeah.
speaking, it's a different art form, isn't it? It really is cutting trailers. It's a lot of filmmakers don't understand that, like, just because you have a good dramatic, narrative editor or even an action editor, to cutting a movie trailer is a completely different thing, isn't it?
It's so different. And even it's different between a trailer, which is a maximum length of 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot different than cutting a TV spot or a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube promo, where, if you're constrained to 30 seconds to the frame, you got to make some tough choices.
Oh, yes, you do.
And you have to know how to manipulate your content to fit within that and not feel like things are rushed, like there's
Mhm.
enough air in the right places. It's a very musical art form, and it's very, very rhythm based. the funny thing is, a lot of times as a trailer editor, we'll get put on a project, and the filmmaker will probably have his feature editor take a crack at the trailer sometimes.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's a great piece. It has all the right moments, but it just feels slow.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't fit in the content. It doesn't move quickly enough. It feels fat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But you give it to a trailer editor. Now, granted, sometimes the trailer editor goes in the opposite direction, and you've just got this frenetic pile of unrecognizable crap that you just can't track. But a good trailer editor is going to be able to give the beats just the amount of time that they need with no more than that. And then you fit so much more into it.
Now, what do you think what do you think of trailers that give a little bit too much of the story away?
Yeah, it's a hot topic. It's a really hot topic.
Jesus, with the freaking spoilers. Like sometimes I don't feel like even watching the movie anymore.
I know. And it's, we're public facing a lot, as we're advertising for our training stuff, and we talk about trailers, on our blog and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the biggest objection I see is, trailers these days, they give away everything.
I mean, the worst example of that was Terminator Genesis.
Yes. Yep. That was a bad example. I worked on that too. Mm-hmm.
Did you work on that promo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
the editors all agreed with you, by the way.
Like, who in God's green earth? Why are you giving away the freaking the ending?
Yeah.
It's like Sixth Sense. Oh, by the way, Bruce Willis is a ghost. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, it's not my fault. But seriously, why would you give away the ending of the movie, like the biggest twist? So you actually worked on that project.
Yeah, I did.
And what?
Done early trailer and TV.
How? Tell me what was that process? What was the conversation in the room? Who was the producer who said, "This is a good idea"?
Well, I can't really say that without getting a lot of people mad at me.
No. Don't say.
But what I can tell you from a more general standpoint, as far as why these challenges come up, is that typically, now not always, right? Sometimes the spoiler is a story point, and just don't be an idiot and show that. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes the spoilers are big set piece moments in an action film. Mm-hmm. It's a fight between two people, maybe. Mm-hmm. Or it's your best joke or your scariest moment.
Sure.
And to not show the best of the best stuff in a trailer, mm-hmm. a lot of times you feel like you're doing it a major disservice. Because why would you water down this amazing stuff and hold it back when there's so much competition out there for eyeballs and attention? So
I get your point, but there are so many amazing trailers that are created that don't give away everything. And I can't, off the top of my head, like the Watchmen trailer, which mm-hmm. was arguably one of the best trailers I've seen in the past 10 years. The Suicide Squad's trailer, which was easily the best trailer I've seen edited in the last 10 years.
Trailer 2 with Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes, without question. The movie is garbage, but the trailer... That was horrible. It was horrendous. Yeah. But the trailer, that trailer probably was worth $20 million, $30 million easily.
Yeah.
In ticket sales, because people just showed up because of that trailer. So, but they didn't give away story because there was none. But but Watchmen, let's say Watchmen created this event. You're familiar with that trailer, right?
To be honest, I don't remember it. No.
It was with a Smashing Pumpkins song. Done, which is a common trait now. They take an old classic song and they do like an acoustic version of it. Uh-huh. And Smashing Pumpkins did this acoustic version of this amazing song, and it was all slow-mo, and all these visuals were just kind of popped in and popped out, and you hear the dialogue of the characters, and you don't know anything about the story. All you know is it's Watchmen. Like that mm-hmm. was it. And it was such a brilliant trailer. It seems like nowadays you need to have more balls to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you do. You're completely right. And by the way, I agree with you. Like, there are a lot of trailers that give away too much. Mm-hmm. I was just basically saying the reasons why people fall into that trap. Mm-hmm. But it's a trap, and you shouldn't. And a lot of times, it's also it comes from the studio end. Not to point mm-hmm. too many fingers.
Sure, no, I get it. I get the point of giving away those big set pieces, and I get but like in Terminator, there was no need.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. You
Yeah.
can just be a little bit more creative. And like you said, have balls. Because if you have a good movie, I mean, to be honest with you, what I've always wanted to see tested. And by the way, there's testing that goes on during the process of creating the
Of
trailer.
course, I'm sure.
Many, many rounds of it.
Mhm.
And what I would love to see in some sort of alternate universe is a trailer that's actually released to the public one way, and then in universe B, it's released a different way.
Mhm.
Way one is 2 minutes and 30 seconds, jam-packed with story information, as many cool moments that you can fit in there, and maybe a spoiler. Way two, a 30-second, extremely minimal, more teaser-like
Teaser
piece.
trailer. All right.
Yep, that just sets the world, maybe creates one plot point, and is just a complete enticement. And who knows which would do better? I kind of sometimes think it would be way number two.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the difference between a teaser and a traditional trailer? Because I think that's a topic that people just don't get sometimes.
Yeah, I can. So a teaser, I mean, the name says a lot of it. It's typically the first, well, it's not typically, it's always the first thing that comes out in the marketing process of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So the teaser will often be very early. It'll be released, or at least be being worked on very early in the process of the actual production of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you don't have much footage to work with. Sometimes you have no footage. And it's typically short. Every rule is meant to be broken. Sometimes you'll see a teaser that's almost 2.5 minutes long.
I've seen those.
Should not be that long.
I think 60 would probably be the top.
I would think so.
Yeah.
A lot of times teasers are really heavy with graphics.
Yeah.
Or they're a conceptual piece sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I worked on the trailer for the film Oculus,
Mm-hmm.
and the teaser was actually a special shoot of this, evil mirror. That is nothing to do. It's not in the movie at all. It was a special shoot completely designed for the teaser.
What was the movie? Oh, the Rogue One's trailer that they shot. There was a whole bunch of footage that never was in the movie. That pisses me off.
Yeah, that's a rough one too. Yep.
That was a good trailer, by the way. That was a really good trailer.
Yeah.
It was an amazing trailer for Rogue One, but you're like, people are like, look at all this footage that never made it into the movie. And I know why, all the stuff that happened with the movie, but that's always upsetting when I hear a line that's not in the movie. Just pisses me off.
I know. And as a filmmaker, I'm sure you actually remember these things too.
Right. Yeah. As a filmmaker, you're just like, that wasn't in the movie. That was like the best line. Why didn't that make the movie? That makes no sense.
I know.
It's stuff like that. But yeah, so a teaser is a little bit shorter, and then a traditional trailer is a traditional trailer.
Yep, shorter, not much story information, just a taste, basically.
Now, what are the things that you should, as a filmmaker, when you are working on a trailer with an editor or trying to do it on your own, what are the things that you should have in a teaser trailer versus a regular trailer to help sell your movie?
Okay. So, well, in a teaser, you just have the general conceit of what the movie is.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what you want. In a superhero movie, you might just have one shot of, the back of Doctor Strange walking towards the open window with his cape flapping.
Yes.
And then you have a title card. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a tiny plot point with your main character, and that's probably about it.
Mm-hmm.
In a regular trailer, you're going to basically want to set up quite a bit more. I could talk about the difference maybe between the genres, if that's helpful.
Sure, go for it.
Because it's going to vary a little bit depending on your genre.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe starting with, let's say, drama. Drama trailers, obviously, as you might expect, are very heavily based on story, based on character, and obviously emotion. So you're going to spend a lot longer time in that trailer, up to 2/3 of it, really fleshing out these characters and the stakes of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Trailers are typically, a full trailers, you're probably going to find it usually in a 3-act structure, not always, but often. Mm-hmm. Act 1, setting up the world and your characters. Act 2, conflict. Act 3, as they say, fun and games, which is mostly just montage with big music. Mm-hmm. In a drama, you're going to basically make sure you have all that stuff fleshed out so that by the time you're done with Act 2, your viewer is extremely emotionally invested, and you can just drop in that big music in Act 3 super hard, and it's going to hit them. And ideally, your viewer is going to have chills when that starts. That's when you know that you've done your job well.
In comedy?
Comedy is, again, a big cliche, but it's all about timing. That's obvious. That has a lot to do with music and music stops and kind of, carving out your moments within a comedy trailer. But I think what people don't necessarily think of as often when it comes to cutting a good comedy trailer is that you're going to want to tell your story using the jokes from the film. Mm-hmm. So as you break down a movie, when you, as a trailer editor, you're first going to watch it. You're going to take some notes. You're going to talk to your producers about, what's the game plan here. And then you're going to break down your footage, break down your lines, your moments, your jokes. So with the comedy trailer, you're going to have all these jokes that you've listed out, some of your favorites. And you're going to also have in the back of your mind, what's this movie about? It's about, these two guys that go on this road trip and blah, blah, blah happens. And then, and that's pretty much, the comedy plots aren't usually too crazy as far as being complicated. Right. So how do you take these jokes, the best stuff from your film, lay them out in a linear fashion that goes not necessarily linear to the chronology of the story, but linear on your timeline, and connect those moments together with the connective tissue from the film, the story beats that make it make sense. So let's say you have it's hard to come up with examples, but I would basically say you shouldn't go more than 10 or 15 seconds in a comedy trailer without something funny happening.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And when it does happen, the longer you go, the funnier it has to be. So if you're going to, you better have a really funny joke on the way. And if not, you need to restructure your comedy trailer and find how you can get these jokes closer together and how you can simplify your story to do so.
Yeah, when I was editing the trailer for This Is Meg, I literally had jokes I think that the whole thing was basically like maybe 90 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds. And I would hit jokes pretty much every 10 seconds. There'd be a joke or a setup of a joke. And then and was telling the story along the way. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why people like the trailer so much. It's very important, especially when doing a comedy, that you should do those jokes as often as possible.
And it sounds obvious, right?
But it's not. People, especially in indies, like indie trailers. Now, let me ask you a question. With indie film trailers, generally speaking, indie films are generally going to be comedy or dramedies or dramatic, or then we also go into the horror and action indies. I feel a lot of times when I see these trailers done by non-professional trailer editors, that I feel that they become so heavy-handed and they don't understand like any concept in regards to trailer editing. Because I see these, especially with horror and action, they just constantly do the one-trick pony kind of cuts, and there's no, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then the action is the same thing. Any advice you can give indie trailers editors out there, or people who are trying to edit their own trailer for an indie film? Yeah, because they don't have those big set pieces.
No,
they don't have no cast generally.
I would say the best advice for that is less is more.
Agreed.
We kind of coined this term in some of our training, the term of unresolution. I mean, I know it's a real word, but basically kind of crafting moments around unresolution. So if somebody's going to jump off, if you got these two kids and it's summertime and it's a coming of age story and they're playing on a dam and one of them goes to jump off the dam into the water, even if in the movie they're perfectly fine, cut to black on that jump and indicate that maybe there was a problem. You know what I mean? Right. Just leave the audience hanging as often as possible and don't lay out the entire story. It's I think it's hard for filmmakers especially to do that because they've put so much love and so much time into crafting these stories, but some of the information just is not important for the trailer. It's too much in the weeds.
Oh God, I've seen 5.5-minute trailers.
Yeah.
For indie features, and they're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. You're like, nobody's gonna watch that. It's too long.
The movie's 80 minutes. You've already given away 5%.
Yeah.
It is a little too much. Now, a big thing with with trailers in general is the old school way of narration versus no narration, and how powerful those old, like, and when I say old, I'm talking about probably not 80s, obviously 90s, even the 2000s. And
Yeah.
occasionally I'll hear a narrator, like every once in a blue moon, but generally that's not done as much anymore. But those voices like Don Fontaine,
Mhm.
the legendary voices that, I mean, obviously I'm sure you know who Don Fontaine is.
Yeah.
And for people listening, Don Fontaine, he passed years ago, but his voice you've probably heard a million times. And I saw a special on him on like ABC News or 60 Minutes or something like that. And they literally had him do the opening for the show in different genres.
Oh, cool.
Same words, different genres. So as a dramatic, as a romantic comedy, as a horror, and as an action. And his tone change made it a different movie. It was magical to watch that man work.
So talented. It's really hard to do good narration.
It is. So tell me what's the whole deal with narration, no narration? What's your feeling on it? Should people try to get narrators, professional VO people? What do you think?
Yeah. So kind of just like fashion, there's trends.
Mhm.
Currently the trends are at the moment, as far as genres go, action, you really don't want a narrator.
Yeah.
Drama, be very careful. Comedy, sometimes, horror, anytime you want. And the reason for those different are at the moment, narration, and I hate to, kind of piss off the narrator use for narration.
Say that.
But in trailers,
Can you say that one more time?
yeah, I was just saying I don't want to upset the narrator community
Mhm.
by saying what I'm saying, because there's a lot of need for good narration in a lot of different circumstances.
Mhm.
But within the context of a trailer, generally, if a trailer is really serious,
Mhm.
which would be action or drama,
Mhm.
a narrator is kind of going to suck the seriousness out of that, so to speak. It's going to make it almost sound a little cheesy, a little corny.
Like in the old, like I remember, I'm like an encyclopedia of trailers in my head, but like The Last Boy Scout, I remember that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that trailer?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, he's he's a cop on the edge. And then Bruce Willis would say a line, he's like, he's a fuck up, whatever. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, he's a mess up. And then there's Damon Wayans. And, all this, but it worked for that because it was kind of like an action comedy, but it really wasn't. But it kind of was in that vein of Lethal Weapon. So, but today that wouldn't work. Like I would never do that today.
Yeah. Well, and you just nailed it. So action comedy, right? So if the film has a comedic element to it, if it's a horror film, horror has an inherent slight campiness to it sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comedy obviously has comedy to it.
Right.
And action comedy does. So I don't know do you remember the movie MacGruber?
Oh God, yes. Jeez, of course. That actually was a pretty decent trailer. If I remember correctly,
yeah.
It was a pretty amazing trailer. Movie wasn't that great, but the trailer was genius.
Yep, that's the perfect time. If you want to use some narration, go for it. You're poking fun at yourself in the process, and it's fine. It works out great. But you wouldn't want to take a Marvel movie and put narration underneath it. It's just not going to work.
Could you imagine that? Like I couldn't even think about like his name is Tony Stark. It would kill the trailer.
Yeah, you'd have eye rolls in the first 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I think also the audience is so much more savvy and almost cynical because they've been burned so many times by good trailer editors.
Yeah,
I've been burned.
I know.
I mean, Suicide Squad, perfect example. Yep. Amazing trailer, garbage movie, and you're just So I think audience members are a little bit more it's like almost non-trusting anymore.
Yeah,
as opposed to the way it used to be.
It's tough, because it's like the trailer editors are doing their job, and
right.
and you have to do it, but it is marketing at the end of the day, and
of course,
it just kind of, in my mind, are you going to use your powers for good or for evil, right?
Oh, I felt dirty. I felt dirty many a day.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have too. I felt dirty many a days after editing a trailer, going,
"Yeah,
I feel this is not right."
Yeah, but it shows how powerful of a skill set it is, right?
It is a tremendous skill set. I mean, like I did an indie film the other day, and it was it's like this drama. And they're like, we need to make it into an exciting thing. So I'm like, okay, literally any movement in the entire movie was in the trailer. Like any walking fast, any car turns.
Yep.
There was a gun, so the gun obviously made it into the trailer. And I edited into this thing, and I felt like, wow, I feel super dirty about this. And I told the director, I'm like, look, this is about to sell. I'm trying to get you to get this movie sold, but it's not. I feel bad. And he's like, I know this is not the movie I directed. I'm like, I know, but would you see this movie based off the trailer? He goes, yeah, I'd probably see that movie versus the trailer of mine that was 5.5 minutes long, and it was a traumatic trailer.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to, right, there's the business side of filmmaking, and then there's the creative and artistic side of filmmaking.
Of course.
And when they can overlap, thank God, you've got gold. But sometimes they don't. And sometimes, what you have, for a film, if you represent it completely to a T, it's not going to necessarily put butts in seats because maybe it has a long buildup, or maybe you just, it's a very specific audience that you're going for. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to have enough reach to really make it a success. So you really have to kind of open up a film to more quadrants by accentuating the parts of a film that are not necessarily there in spades.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the different kinds of, we've talked about teaser trailers and we talked about regular trailers, and then they'll do version 1, version 2, version 3, depending on how big the movie is.
Yeah.
There are also like character trailers, like trailers that are just literally around a certain character in the movie, that I've seen happen for bigger movies, like obviously Justice League being a current example of that. Would you suggest, depending on and I've also seen it on indie action trailers, indie action films, to kind of create those like 15, 20-second character trailers for an action. I think it only really works with action unless you've got an ensemble cast and comedy or something like that. But it's just another angle to try to sell the movie. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, obviously you have to have enough of a media budget to warrant going down that direction, in addition to your teaser and your full trailer and maybe a couple short general audience spots. Mm-hmm. But if you've got the budget and you've got the time and resources, absolutely.
But how about even if you're just going to put it up on YouTube to kind of create create it as a marketing tool? That's what you're going to start putting out on Facebook, and that's going to be kind of like a marketing campaign. Because I did that with This Is Meg. I created little trailers or little scenes from the movie and popped them out there, and just kind of put them out there, and just to kind of build up excitement over the project, even though it's such a small movie like mine. But it was just a way of getting it out there. I think it's valuable if you're doing it yourself. It's very affordable.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think that way you can, especially all the different characters are going to appeal to different types of people, right?
Right.
So you're going to hit a lot of different demographics by releasing trailers. Yeah, you're right. Focus on different characters.
It's the boy band way of doing it. You got the cute one, the smart one, the rebel. That's the boy band model.
Yeah. We actually did that for Scott Pilgrim versus the World. We did a lot of those spots.
Exactly. So that was a perfect, that's a comedy, and then you did those kind of things because there's so many characters in it. That movie's so underrated, by the way.
Yeah, love it.
It's such a movie. And another movie that was really underrated in that same kind of crazy vein, Speed Racer.
I haven't seen it.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I don't. I wish I
Dude, it's the Wachowski brothers.
I don't know how I missed it.
I think that's the problem. Most people missed it. It is a brilliant, and if people listening right now, go out and find Speed Racer. What the Wachowskis, who also directed a little movie called The Matrix, did with that movie, the visuals of it it's insane. You should definitely watch it. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's Speed Racer. It's a Speed Racer movie, and they make no apologies of it. The world it created, and the trailer, I remember, was amazing for it. But people just did not show up for that movie. So much so that you don't even remember it.
Right. Yeah, no, I truly don't. But I just wrote it down, so I'm going to check it out.
Definitely check it out. Now, what's some of the craziest stories that you can share from the edit room?
Oh, man. You're trying to get me in trouble?
Just, you could be very, very loosey-goosey with the people involved. But just the crazy stuff.
Well, so I think that most of the crazy stories that I have revolve around ridiculous deadlines.
Always.
Always, right? Which is typically when the most interesting stuff happens because the emotions are flying rampant.
Yes. But, and it's big stakes too on those kind of bigger budget things.
Yeah. One that stands out in my mind was it was for the movie Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had a trailer. The studio had a trailer. They had shown it to Peter Jackson, and he wanted to just explore some other avenues before agreeing to, locking that.
Mm-hmm.
So I forget the exact time frame, but it was Thursday currently, and they wanted to lock something the following Wednesday. And obviously the locking process means that the trailer has to be completed and submitted in advance of that date.
Yeah, sound design, everything.
Yeah. And obviously with the trailer, the editor has to do all the sound design.
Okay.
So,
but you guys have a mix somewhere? Someone do a full mix?
Somebody does a balancing mix at the end, but the editor does all the sound design, all the Foley, all the music editing, everything.
Wow. Okay.
It's very, very, very different from, I know a lot of feature editors will dive into their own sound, but you don't have a really solid cleanup crew coming after you if you need it with trailers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the deadlines are so quick. That's probably why.
Yeah. Yeah. And also there's just so many versions and so many things that you're going to make there's, you would have to have a whole team of sound design. You'd have to have just as many sound designers as trailer.
The workflow would be so ridiculous that because you're going to make so many versions of that for different countries and different this and different that if you have to constantly be going out to a mix, it's like you go crazy.
Yeah. And this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but also because trailer editors actually will typically cut most of their audio first before picture.
Interesting.
That serves as the foundation because you're dealing with a time-based piece. It's easy to adjust shot lengths. It's a lot harder to adjust the length of your music cue and your dialogue lines.
That's very interesting. Like when I edit, I generally like to lay a bass down first, but I'd lay a loose bass. But you're saying it would be more of a solid, like here's act 1, here's act 2, here's act 3. Here are the beats, and I got to fit the movie into the structure.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, so actually in this example of this crazy scenario, I started work on this thing on Thursday, slept maybe 3 or 4 hours each night for the next 4 days or so. And by, I guess it was Monday it was Tuesday. It was the day before it was due. My producer came into the room to see how things were going. And I was, cracked out, hopped up on Dr. Pepper. I wasn't into coffee at the time. I was
Dr. Pepper. I've never heard anyone being cracked out on Dr. Pepper. Mountain Dew, Red Bull, Monster, but never Dr. Pepper. That's a new one.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
I drank Bolt when I was in college. That was disgusting. Have you ever drank Bolt?
No.
Do you know what Bolt is?
No, I've heard that it's a little gross though.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It was before Red Bull.
Yeah, that's like that 5-hour energy. That just makes me nauseous.
Right.
But anyway.
So you're cracked out on Dr. Pepper.
Cracked out on Dr. Pepper. Producer comes in. He looks at my timeline and says, all right, let's take a look. Let's see where you are. And there's tons of segments. There's a lot of stuff going on in the timeline. It looks really busy. It looks really impressive. But everything is below the video line. There's no video except for the green card, which is the green band.
Sure.
Full graphic cards and the final, the film logo at the end. And he's like, well, I'm a little concerned, Chris, because it's due tomorrow and you don't have a trailer. But I said, well, don't look at the picture yet. Just close your eyes and just listen to this. And he did. And he's like, that's great. Sounds like an awesome trailer.
Let's put some visuals in there and we'll continue.
And I did. And it took maybe 5 or 6 hours max to put all the visuals in because it's paint by number at that point. You know where stuff's going. You're going to have your dialogue lines that you want on camera landing. You just match back to your source. You drop them in. You know, in your montage sections, you do whatever works. You go to your visual breakdown. You pull the best shots in the best order and you start finessing things together. But your structure and your cadence is already, you're done. So at that point, it becomes pretty easy. So it was stressful, but it was a fun experience.
So I'll give you a quick my craziest story in the edit room. I actually had 2 producers in the room get into a fist fight.
That's better.
That's literally into a fist fight. And they didn't, editors generally, when clients and producers and directors fight, they generally don't blame us, the editor. Generally, right? They don't like pick a fight with us. They generally are fighting amongst themselves. We're just the tool that's moving along the line, like, do it this way, do it that way. But
yeah, they need us to do work. They can't afford to fight with us that much.
Exactly. You can't piss off the editor. We'll just walk out the door.
Yeah.
Now, how do you work with like a director or producer when putting together a trailer?
Yeah. Well, it depends on a couple things. I'd say the biggest thing it depends on is the experience level of the editor.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously the more experience an editor has, the more free reign they're going to be given to do their own thing and to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, no matter who you're dealing with, your producer is going to be the one interfacing with the studio. They're going to kind of get the creative brief on everything. What does the studio think that they have in the way of a film? What's the story to them? Things that should be included, things that should be avoided. You get all that information up front.
Mm-hmm.
Typically,
don't show this. Do definitely have this in the trailer. Things like that.
Yeah, lean on this moment. Be careful of this scene. It's not. Moms aren't liking. The person with their head getting cut off. That type of thing.
That's so ridiculous, but I get it.
Yeah, I know. It's like women just want to see the same stuff as guys. Like, don't stereotype like
so, that. So that, I mean, so generally speaking, because you're working at fairly the highest level in the studio system doing movie trailers, you have a very unique perspective on this, as opposed to a promo editor at a TV network or a shop somewhere doing other trailers. You're working with, some of the projects you've worked on are fairly high profile. So you're dealing with groups and what's the word? When they go out and they test groups and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting all that information. You're the one that they're talking like, yeah, the head cutting off. We can't do that because moms in Iowa don't like that.
Yeah,
you get those conversations.
Oh yeah,
comments all the time.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when a studio or anybody will do testing, a lot of the information gets taken out of context. Mm-hmm. Because if you show, these 5 moments thrown together in this certain way with this certain music in trailer number 1, and your end moment just doesn't, let's say it's a joke and people don't find it that funny. But maybe it's because that's the way it wasn't set up properly throughout the rest of the trailer. So it doesn't land as a funny joke. It's just not working in that piece. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what will happen is you'll get a note that says, this joke sucks. Don't use this joke ever. But the problem is it might be a great joke. And if you cut it correctly and if you put it in the right location within your trailer, it's going to kill.
So it's basically like you're baking a cake. You don't ever use cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, maybe cinnamon in in that avocado cake is not that good, but in the proper place, it would work.
And don't put 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Maybe put half a teaspoon. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It all varies depending on the situation and the circumstance.
Yeah. And that's why it's a creative art, right? I mean, that's why I think all editors get a little nervous of this whole AI thing. Oh my God, the computers are going to take my job.
They're not. I mean, I can't see that. And hopefully it will never, something like that would never happen. I think there was a movie that was just written by a computer. A script was written by a computer.
The Watson one?
Yeah, is that the one? Yeah, and they said it was horrible.
Really? Good.
Because it's something that I don't think you can bring down to one. You can't deconstruct creativity in that way. To a certain extent, you can with, I guess, structure and plot points and things like that. But at the end of the day, it is coming from a place that is not mathematical.
Yeah.
And same thing with trailer
there's a lot
editing.
Of subjectivity and context.
And history and baggage that person brings to the your life experience.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, it depends on who's watching it and what they've been, what it connects with as far as that.
Like an 18-year-old editor versus a 40-year-old trailer editor, and they're both editing trailers, are going to be, I think, a fairly different kind of trailer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just from life experience and everything. So that's how generally you work with. Do you ever have a director in the room?
Rarely. Sometimes towards the end of a process on, Yeah, sometimes, not often. It's uncommon, but yeah, on occasion you'll have a director come in, and that's typically it's all hands on deck when that happens.
Yeah, I could imagine.
The editors keep your mouth shut, just sit there at the computer, and then the producers and typically a creative director will be available to kind of interface with him or her.
Right.
But but for the most part, I mean, when you start a project, you get that brief. The producer then talks with the editor, relays that information. Typically on any project, and the bigger the project, the more trailers are going to be cut for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncommon. I think for that Suicide trailer, I mean, it was 15 or 20 trailers were cut before they chose that one.
Really?
Maybe more. Yeah, it was a lot.
I'm sure I gotta believe on those $150 million movies plus another 150 on marketing, they're gonna take their time and they're gonna figure out what's the best way to sell this project.
Yeah, because you have to explore all the avenues for sure.
Now, I'm not sure if this relates to what you do so much, but can you talk a bit about what a predator is? Is that something that trailer editors are in a sense or not?
Yeah, so a predator is a producer and combined with an editor.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, as an editor gets kind of further along in their career,
Mm-hmm.
they'll also become their own producer.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it typically doesn't go the other way around. A producer is not going to also start editing because it's just too tedious to come up with that skill set out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a few, I guess you could call them predators, that are out there in the trailer industry, and they're basically what every trailer editor aspires to be.
Right. Complete control, as much control as you can have.
Yeah, but you have to be really, really good. You have to really know your stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and understand both sides of the business, the technical side of it and creative side, but also the producer side of dealing with the studio.
Yeah, because part of what's wonderful about producers is that as the editor, you're going to sit there and you're going to get frustrated and angry, and you're not going to agree with certain notes, but you're going to have to spend the next 9 hours executing them.
Oh God, yes.
And if you were interfacing directly with the client, I think they're going to probably pick up on that vibe that you're not a happy camper,
mm-hmm.
which is bad for business. So having that buffer zone, in addition to the great ideas that producers will also come up with, is vital.
That's insane. Now, technically, what are the elements that you need to start editing a trailer for some filmmaker who has their movie and they're going to start trying to go down this road to edit their first trailer? What are the technical elements that you should have in place?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So typically, the first thing you're going to get is the footage. So a trailer editor is not going to typically be cutting from dailies or rushes. For the most part, I think we talked about this earlier. It's either a rough assembly or a rough cut of the feature.
Okay.
That will always have split audio. So DME splits, which is dialogue, music, effects split out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to be able to cut things up, put them into a different order. It's very, very uncommon to use the music from a film in the trailer. So you're almost always stripping that out and just using some of the effects, but mostly just the dialogue.
Unless it's Titanic.
Yeah.
And then you've got that music. Or unless the music is such an integral part of the movie that it makes sense to put it in. But I haven't seen many of that lately.
Yeah, it definitely happens, but you're right, it's uncommon.
Right.
So you'll want to have your footage, you want to have your audio splits. You're going to have a library of music and songs.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have your own personal sound design and Foley library, which is crucial. You will have you're typically not going to have finished graphics to start. You'll probably just temp something in yourself in your editing program.
Mm-hmm.
White text on black.
Right.
You may have some copy, you may not. And then you may or may not choose to do a paper cut before you begin editing. And of course, you'll break down the footage. I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that trailer editors, if you have an assistant to do it, wonderful, you're lucky. But if you don't, as a trailer editor, you need to watch the movie once, then you go back through and you break down. So either subclips or cutting onto a timeline, whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do subclips, and I will subclip every single line of the whole movie into a bin, write the character's name, what they say, and then move on to the next line.
Wow. Don't you have an assistant to help you with that?
Ideally, yeah. Yep. The last few jobs I had, we had assistants, but I have done my fair share of breakdowns, and it takes a while.
Yeah, I'm assuming, yeah, it takes a long while, but when you're editing, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah, you have to have it because you have to be able to search. You're like, oh man, it'd be so great if he said that's not going to happen on my watch.
I'm getting too old for this crap.
I'm getting too old for this. Yeah. Yeah. And when you have a client in the room or something like that, you need to be able to find this stuff fast. So you can't really rely on your memory to dig through the feature and pull it up.
That's excellent, man. So also you actually put together a resource for filmmakers or editors who are interested in creating real good movie trailers, and it's part of Film Editing Pro. So can you talk a little bit about what you've put together?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess Film Editing Pro as a whole, I'll just say is, I mean, we're an online training company. Our focus is on creative editing. So we don't teach software, at least not at the moment. Our focus is on kind of actionable hands-on stuff. How do you cut a fight scene? How do you sound design this scary moment? How do you work with your music so a joke feels funny and is punctuated nicely and doesn't fall flat? Stuff that you can watch it in our training and then you can go and apply it right away to something that you're working on. So our most recent course is about trailers. It was a really fun course to create. I kind of collaborated with a lot of editors across the trailer editing world. And it was a cool process talking to those guys because, as an individual with a trailer editing experience, I had maybe 70-80% of the tips and tricks kind of banked away in somewhere in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of forget you don't know what you don't know, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it was cool kind of picking everybody's brain. And what we ended up with was this huge kind of compendium of various techniques and ways of dealing with problematic situations and strategies for kind of going from A to Z through a trailer editing process. So yeah, we put it all together into a course. It's a video-based course. We make it available online to students. They can, if you check it out, you're able to download footage. You download a sound library, and you kind of follow along. You cut a trailer with us.
That's amazing, and definitely put links in the show notes where you guys can get access to this because I've actually taken part of the course already, and being a trailer editor myself, again, not at the level that you're at, but doing many promos over the years and editing all my trailers for all my movies over the years. When I started watching it, I was like, wow, this is intense. Like you really went all out for, like, if you want to edit a trailer, you got to watch this because it really breaks everything down in such a way that things that I didn't even, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And some stuff I did instinctually, there's an actual name for it or there's an actual technique for it. I'm like,
or we made up a name for it.
Or there's a what?
Or we made up some name for it because nobody else knew about it.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
And the resources that the program provides, where you can get a music library and you can get a sound library to kind of play along with, is massive. It's really massive. So, highly recommend it. But I'll definitely put all that information in the show notes. Now, music, and that's music is such a huge part of trailer cutting.
Yeah.
There are a couple libraries out there. The one, oh God, I can't remember. It's the main one, the one that's in everyone freaking uses. Oh God.
ETOL is a famous one.
Yeah, there was one that has the opera, the rising chorus.
I don't know. I've used so many.
But you know what I'm talking about, like the
yeah.
boom.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That whole thing. Well, so are there any that you would recommend people who are interested? Any good free resources and also resources that that they can kind of look into, see if there is something like that they're interested in.
Yeah. So a couple of the people that we've kind of partnered with over the years to provide access to cool music and stuff like that would be Position Music and Sound. They have an enormous library, ton of variety. High Finesse Music, they're also excellent. They're a smaller library, but their stuff is just super cool. It's kind of basically every superhero movie that you've seen recently probably has a cue from them in it.
Got it.
I guess you could call it grungy, driving, kind of bad.
And there's a chorus in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. And typically, when you're working with one of these libraries, if you request, you can usually get stems. So you'll get the instrumentation broken out across like 16 tracks,
Oh
and then
my
you can
God.
almost recompose as you need to.
That's insane.
That equals a messy timeline. That's a challenge too.
I can only imagine what kind of time like that is.
Oh my God.
Because you're a
Yeah.
sound editor as well as an editor at that point.
Yeah. I mean, all the best trailer editors are musicians. Absolutely.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's interesting to know.
hmm But those are good. But you do have to license that stuff. I would say that if you're looking for free stuff, you know, we do provide some free stuff in the course, but I actually, if you need really cheap free stuff, I would go to Audio Jungle.
Yeah, I know Audio Jungle.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what your need is, you may not be able to find it there, but their prices are really reasonable. And obviously, if you're just using it for your own reel or for maybe a temp track or something like that, you can get it really cheap or nothing.
Very good resource. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions that I ask all of my guests, so prepare yourself.
Okay.
What advice would you give an editor wanting to break into the business, whether that be trailer editing or any kind of editing?
Yeah, so we're talking like just out of college type thing?
Literally, hey, I just want to start cutting.
Yep.
And it could be someone who's been in the business for a while or someone who just got out of college.
Yep. All right. Well, so first of all, start cutting. Create yourself a cool reel. Be creative. You're going to have a little bit of a challenge if you want to like cut your own practice trailers, because getting those audio splits is going to be your biggest challenge. But a trick for that would be if you want to, like, let's say you find a movie, if you rip a DVD or whatever you want to do to get your footage into your editing system so you can play with it, try to take the 5.1 mix and take the center channel, which will typically be mostly dialogue. So at least you can isolate the dialogue and start cutting the trailer from that.
Good note.
Yeah, that's a good trick. As far as making contact with people in the industry, I forget the name of the website, but if you Google trailer production companies, trailer houses, either one, there's a couple lists that literally list every single trailer house in the world with their phone numbers and their addresses. So what I would do if I were you, the trailer companies might hate them about to say this, but just email them and reach out to them and say, dig up their emails, get creative, look on LinkedIn, look on, find people that work at these companies and contact them via Facebook if you need to. Direct messaging is an awesome way of making contact with people. And, whether you send them your reel or not, I mean, to be honest with you, they may or may not care about your reel initially because they're going to start you at the bottom no matter what.
Right.
But you just need to get that foot in the door. So just reach out to them and say, you're willing to start as an intern, a runner. You just want to learn, be enthusiastic, and follow up once or twice and do this, like, let numbers work for you. Do this with 50 companies. If you do it enough times, you're going to get somebody to call you back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good advice. Now, can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
Yeah, I figured you would probably ask that. All right. So books for me are tricky. I'm actually looking at my bookshelf right now, which is overflowing. And my wife and I are redesigning the closet to fit more books.
Sure.
So my favorite book is a hard thing to say because it changes depending on what I'm currently interested in. Currently, my favorite book that I'm kind of getting the most out of, that's really kind of changing how I approach a lot, is actually a book about storytelling. The 21st Century Screenplay by Linda Aronson.
Nice.
I don't know if you've had a chance to check that one.
I have not. The 21st Century?
Yeah, 21st Century Screenplay by Linda Aronson.
Okay.
It's a dense read, but it is pretty much everything you could ever want to know about story structure, key beats that you need to hit in a film with your characters. It's applicable to everything from feature editing to short films, all the way down to like the micro world of the trailer. Just obviously a lot more compressed.
Right.
So I've been I never really studied story itself that thoroughly in the past. And it's something that I've always felt for me was actually a weak point. So that's kind of what I've been digging into. And I kind of wish I had read it 10 years ago.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
I'm still learning it, actually.
Right.
You can't do everything yourself.
God, that's a lesson I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah, we all are, right?
I do everything myself, man. It's hard sometimes.
I mean, especially us, like people like us, other filmmakers. I mean, you're so driven, you're so type A. It's just nobody could possibly do this as well as I could do it. And
What? Get out of my head.
yeah, right. And it's so bad. It's such a bad idea, and it's so cynical about. I mean, you were surrounded by amazingly talented people. Like, how dare we think that we're the best at everything?
I
Not
know.
that.
On a set, I have no problem doing it, but when
Yeah.
it comes to my business, it's a difficult lesson to learn, and hopefully, I'll learn it sooner rather than later.
I hear you, man.
So, what are three of your favorite films of all time?
Ooh. So I wish I had. I wish I had like movies I could tell you that were like highly acclaimed.
No, dude, I've had all sorts on this, so please tell me what literally your favorite films. You don't give me Citizen Kane. Don't give me.
I'm not going to.
Yeah, don't give me the same. Like, just give me something that you actually like. It doesn't matter.
I love Toy Story 1 when it came out.
It's amazing. It's an amazing movie.
I was into the 3D, like I was telling you at the time. For me, I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
It was pretty bad. Though I would argue that Toy Story 2 might be a little bit better, just slightly better, in my opinion.
I bet it's way better. Yeah, it didn't hit me at the same time, so it didn't have the same meaning for me.
Sure, fair enough.
Born Identity, how can you hate that?
I mean, seriously, it's amazing. That was an awesome movie, man.
Yeah,
that movie changed a lot. Like that's what's one of those movies that changed how action movies were made.
With the handheld,
the fight sequences, the way, because prior to that, like if you don't do Born Identity, I don't think you get Casino Royale. In the way that because they shot Casino Royale is a lot like Born Identity in the style, and a lot of especially the fight sequences. They're so vicious, and you're in there, and the cutting of those is so amazing. I don't remember
that crane sequence. Remember that one at the beginning?
Oh God, of Casino. Oh
yeah, of Casino.
Oh Jesus. But Bourne really kind of changed the way action movies were made, and there's a few movies that do that. Matrix being another one that completely changes the game. There's a few of those movies that really change things. But yeah, Born Identity, amazing film.
Yep. And I'd say for number 3, if we're gonna maybe go into the comedy world, Old School. Love that one.
What are you talking about? That's classic. Teach that in film schools. What are you talking about? No.
Are they now?
No,
really?
They're not at all.
Oh, okay.
But it is a great film. That's Will Ferrell, I think, at the top of his game.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Brother, man, thank you so much for being on the show, man. You've dropped a good amount of knowledge bombs on the Indie Tribe today. And it's a topic that we've never talked about, so I truly appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I can't stress enough how important movie trailer editing is for you as an independent filmmaker. You really have to understand the concepts behind what a good trailer is, how to get your own trailer made. And if you can't afford to hire a professional movie trailer editor, you really need to learn the craft yourself. And if you're starting out, you've got time, and you got to put those tools in your toolbox. Trust me. I'm going to put a link in the description for the trailer for Broken, the short film I did 12 years ago. And that trailer is what got me everything for that movie. It got all our sales. It got me Roger Ebert's review. It got me studio's attention, all because of that movie trailer. It is so, so powerful to understand the concepts of movie trailers. So as promised, I'm going to give you a link to Chris's free online how to edit a movie trailer course. Just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/trailer editing. That's indiefilmhustle.com/trailer editing. It's a pretty awesome course. I really think it's a tremendous value to you guys. So definitely check it out. And if you want to have links to anything we talked about in the episode, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/181. Oh, and by the way, I want to thank all of the amazing messages and emails I got from you guys, the tribe, congratulating me and Jill on Hulu and getting This Is Meg sold to Hulu. So I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, guys. Thank you so, so much. Again, like I've always said, I feel like you guys were on this journey with me. You guys helped finance it with the crowdfunding, and you've gone on the journey with me. So I'm going to break down a little bit in the future about how I did the Hulu deal and the whole thing about distributor and my experiences and all that stuff. So that's coming up in the next month or two. I've got a lot of stuff cooking. I got a lot of amazing stuff I cannot wait to share with you guys. So as always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.